What is up, everyone? Today I want to talk about Turok Origins. For those who don't know, some of the developers recently attended Summer Game Fest and brought along a playable demo for content creators and media outlets to check out. And for those who really don't know, yes, there is a brand new Turok game currently scheduled to release this fall. The game is being developed by Saber Interactive, the game studio behind Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. If you played that game, I'd expect some similarities when it comes to the co-op experience and large-scale action. Now, I'll be honest, when Turok Origins was first announced about a year and a half ago, I really wasn't a fan of what I saw. The reveal trailer focused heavily on third-person gameplay. The overall direction felt very different from what I wanted or even imagined from a new Turok game. And my first impression wasn't the greatest. But as more gameplay has been shown over time, especially the first-person footage, I found myself warming up to it quite a bit, actually. So today I want to go over all of the information that's been released so far and give my thoughts on it. According to several creators who got hands-on time with the demo, the game is set years before the events of Turok Dinosaur Hunter. Exactly how many years? We don't know yet, but that's something we'll probably learn once the game releases. The campaign is roughly around 12 hours long, and missions will take players across multiple planets. The developers have also talked about secrets, Easter eggs, and special enemy encounters. Finding hidden weapons, discovering secret areas was a huge part of the experience. Hopefully Origins manages to capture some of that same feeling. The primary enemy faction we've seen so far is called the Xenia. We don't know a whole lot about them other than the fact that they're reptilian humanoids, but I do like their design for the most part. They actually remind me quite a bit of the dinosaurs from Turok 2. My biggest complaint is that they blend into the environments a little too much. I think changing some of the armor colors or skin tones could help them stand out better during combat. As for the dinosaurs themselves, I absolutely love what we've seen so far. There seems to be a pretty good variety of creatures, and it also seems like insect enemies are making a return as well. Another thing I'm happy to see returning is platforming. A lot of people forget that Turok wasn't just a run and gun shooter. Platforming played a pretty significant role throughout the original trilogy, especially in Dinosaur Hunter. This time around, we'll also have a grappling hook, which should make platforming and exploration a lot more interesting. Thankfully, we're also getting several returning weapons from the classic games, including the Firestorm Cannon, the Mag 60, the Scorpion Launcher, and of course, the legendary Cerebral Bore. Man, seeing these weapons return definitely makes me happy, but I do have one criticism. Much like the enemy designs, a lot of the weapons we've seen so far share a very similar visual style. Most of them have gray metallic bodies with glowing orange accents, and because of that, they don't stand out from one another as much as they should. There will apparently be weapon skins that can be unlocked throughout the campaign, so hopefully those give each weapon a little more visual personality. Now, if there's one thing I'm genuinely glad they brought back from Turok 2008, it's the executions. Honestly, that was one of the few things I really enjoyed about the failed reboot. I highly doubt they'll function exactly the same way as before, where you could simply walk up to an enemy and perform a finisher immediately. Based on the gameplay we've seen, it looks much closer to the modern Doom games, where enemies enter a vulnerable state first, allowing players to move in and then execute them. And honestly, I'm perfectly okay with that. Now, let's talk about one of the more controversial additions to the game, which are the primal forms, aka the class system. Alright, so you have Raven, which specializes in long-range combat, Cougar, which focuses on mid-range engagements, and Bison, which serves as the close-range powerhouse. Each class comes with its own weapons, abilities, and progression systems designed around its specific playstyle. The developers have stated that the skill trees are highly customizable and should allow players to create builds that fit their preferences. Weapons can also be modified with upgrades and enhancements. One example that stood out to me was a creator mentioning that they were able to modify the Cerebral Bore so that it could target multiple enemies instead of just one. On top of that, new abilities known as Echo Syncs are unlocked by defeating bosses throughout the campaign, which is a pretty cool progression system. Another returning feature that longtime fans will probably appreciate is the return of talismans. The developers confirmed that talismans are coming back and will play a role in character progression. Unfortunately, they didn't go into too much detail about how they'll work, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what they're used for. Now, to be completely honest, I'm not really a big fan of the class system. One of the things I love most about the original trilogy was having access to a massive arsenal of weapons and being able to switch between them whenever I wanted. I understand why the developers chose this direction. Balancing a co-op game is very different from balancing a single player shooter. But personally, I would have preferred if player power was balanced through enemy design, enemy behavior, and enemy synergy rather than limiting players to a smaller selection of weapons. That being said, the systems we've seen so far do seem to encourage player freedom. The customization options sound fairly extensive, and if they're implemented well, they could add a lot of replay value. Overall, you can say I'm really excited to get my hands on Turok Origins. I think it's going to be a fun shooter with a lot of over-the-top action. The only things that worry me now, though, are the soundtrack and the presentation of the story. The soundtrack in the Acclaim games were so iconic and really made you feel like you're on a huge quest to save humanity. The little we've heard so far just sounds boring, honestly. Hopefully it's just a placeholder for now. As for the story, look, to a lot of people, Turok might just seem like a game where you run around killing dinosaurs and aliens, but it's more than that. There's lore to these games and characters and a whole universe surrounding the Lost Land, which was being established by Acclaim, but unfortunately, as many of you know, that all came to a sudden, cliffhanging end.
Henry?
Yes, Counsel.
She grows more insolent by the day.
She loves him.
No matter. She's a danger to us all. Prepare yourself.
Of course, Counsel.
And that's one of the reasons this franchise means so much to me. My grandma and aunt introduced me to Turok when I was younger. In many ways, Turok is the reason I got into video games in the first place, and it's definitely the reason I became a huge fan of first-person shooters. So at the end of the day, whether Origins ends up being amazing or just decent, I'm actually kind of happy to see Turok come back in some sort of way, you know? And hopefully this game is successful and it'll open the door for more entries in the future, and who knows, maybe even a proper continuation of the original trilogy someday. What do you guys think? Are you looking forward to Turok Origins? Were you fans of the older games, or will this be your first experience in the franchise? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace!